Welcome to Analyst Talk with Jason Elder. It's like coffee with an analyst, or it could be whiskey with an analyst reading a spreadsheet, linking crime events, identifying a series, and getting the latest scoop on association news and training. So please don't be that analyst and join us as we define the law enforcement analysis profession one episode at a time.
Thank you for joining me. I hope many aspects of your life are progressing. My name is Jason Elder, and today our guest has 14 years of law enforcement analysis experience with the Special Investigations Bureau for the Puerto Rico Department of Justice. She's a Spanish-English translator for both IALEIA and IACA. She's an analyst turned special agent turned professor turned freelancer. She is law enforcement analyst, pride of Puerto Rico. Please welcome Dr. Agnes Aponte Munoz. Agnes, how are we doing?
Yay! Hello, Jason. Thank you for being invited for this conversation.
Very good. Thank you for joining me. How is Puerto Rico today?
I will say we have a lot of ups and downs because of the aftermath of Hurricane Maria. So we're still struggling with that aftermath. So I will say we are in the survivor mode and keeping going, be back on track. And when you have the time, please visit Puerto Rico so you will enjoy our beautiful beaches and food. You're going to thank me later.
All right. So is it getting into tourist season now?
Hurricane season starts on May until November 30th. Okay. So we have a long period. So it's keeping you stronger because I be there for the Hurricane Maria, so not having power lights for a long month. And living back to the basics, we don't have cell phone. You need to have your plan and having, meals you need to prepare every day, go to find food, gasoline, even ice. For the law enforcement perspective, they going out for long hours because my husband was a law enforcement officer over there for that time. So I don't know where he's going to be assigned, what to do, when he's coming back. So it's very hard because we don't have any cell phone, even messages to text. So it's like before you have a cell phone in the 80s, so sticky notes. Okay, today I will doing this and that. So when he appears at home, he appears. So
wow, that's tough. And you said it's been like that for a month?
I spent without power light almost 4 months.
Oh, wow.
But the entire island is almost like a year to completely full back again. And still today we having like our shutdowns because of the instability of the power light system. So I know how to go back to the basic, wake in your morning, read a lot of books. So I put super updated on all my book that I have it on stack to read it down and join with my neighbors talking about, I don't know, everything. And the most beautiful thing is seeing kids playing in the street. So that's something that you don't see now a lot. And we waited until the night. So we are going back to sleep and waking up to the morning and start talking with your neighbors again. So that's part of the day by day during that hard times.
Oh, great. Looks like you're making the most of it. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back in time then. Let's talk about how you discovered the law enforcement analysis profession.
So I will say it's like a little bit of accident because when I start with loving to the criminal justice field, for it's going to be back to the 90s when the all stuff about law enforcement, especially if you see Bad Boys movie, you want to catch the bad guys and everything, and how to intel everything, how they keep in tracking to the information. So that's something that I like it. And also we have a super famous case in Puerto Rico named Cerro Maravilla. It's a case that hits a lot to the government in the 70s because it's the murder of two independent political persons in hands of the apparently to the government. And in the 80s and in the 90s, they put in TV all the process, interrogations, interview, and everything. So that's something that I like to the criminal justice. So I start my years of college way back to the early 2000. And I made my bachelor in forensic psychology / criminal justice, but my internship to the bachelor degree, my professor puts me on the Special Investigations Bureau, especially in the office on Interpol, Puerto Rico, in the area of missing and exploited children. So I made my internship for 3 or 4 months over there, and they are looking at someone who can translate a lot of document English to Spanish, Spanish to English, and also a person who can talk with the clearinghouses in the United States. So after I finished my internship, I received a job offer. So since 2002-3 until the 17, I spent most of my younger years in the bureau. I work as criminal intelligence analyst to the missing children Interpol, making a lot of translations, and also discover what means of intelligence analysis. So I take my courses, keeping track how to put that together when I'm making the cases to the special agent. And later on in 2009, I decided to change a little bit the way of investigation. So I moved into the organized crimes division and working like daily with the undercover agents and intel office, development cases about organized crimes, firearms, drugs, you mentioned, until 2013, I moved into the civil rights, but that it was as a special agent. Now working in cases related to the violation of civil rights on behalf of the police officers. But at the same time, I have the opportunity to put in practice all my intelligence skills. So give me a lot of the play to have very good quality of, reports, investigations before go to the judge and the cases apply until 2017 when I decided to step that back as a officer and start my journey as a freelancing in both areas and education and also criminal justice advisor. So it's like a long way.
No, that's good. A lot to unpack there. So let's go back here in 2003 then. So you're dealing with missing children and child pornography cases, and you're studying them, you're assisting investigators with their cases. When you're first starting as an analyst, what are some of the issues that you're dealing with as you're learning the job and also trying to work on these cases?
So the first thing, I never know anything about child pornography. I know the concept, but putting in the child or kids or teen. So my first cases about in that field, it's very hard to me to understand the behavior, understand the process of how agents need to make their cases, because I can understand why people consuming that type of information and stuff. So first, understand the intelligence cycle, it's hard to me, because when you came from the college, they don't teach you that in that years. Now you're starting to look in something new, but we are super behind, especially in the college in Puerto Rico. We are super behind to put together or try to let people understand the importance of the intelligence analysis. So back to them, I have a little bit hard time because people understand you are the paper girl because you always sit on the desk. Yeah, but I keep searching, doing my research so I can have enough information for you as an agent, special agents, prosecutor, understand the meaning of the process of the information you gave me. So I will say that is the first thing that I confront when I start in my early years in intelligence analyst.
Okay. Is it a lot of research on the particular suspects? Is that the type of task that you're being asked to do? You get assigned a case, you're investigating a suspect, and you're trying to find out as much about the suspect as possible.
Yes, and also the research about the behavior and the criminal conduct that they're making. That's sometimes because it's give you a little bit more information to the agent to understand or to put in place when or how he going to start their own investigation. So making analysis about the person of the organization per se, but also about the behaviors in the criminal field. So give me a lot of understanding. And also I have experience working to making genealogy family tree. So that's something that I like a lot because it's like a puzzle game where you need to figure out who is related to whom. So that's something that I always enjoy. And also back in the 2000, before I took existing Artflow existing and this old software, doing a lot of telephone analysis by paper. I don't know if you have that experience, count phone by phone, number by number. And if you don't reach at the end and finally you're missing one telephone number, you need to start over again. So I like that. So when I have new students working in telephone analysis, I always put in the hardware and doing hand writing with the pencil, with the highlighter before you go into the software. So they understand the hard time you're having to reach telephone numbers back in the early 2000s. I don't know if you have that experience, but oh my goodness, you spend hours and hours. It's super crazy.
Yeah. So when I started around about this time, I started as an analyst in 2001, and we were getting paper copies of telephone records. And now
the
we
big
were
ones. Ones.
Yeah, and we were trying to scan them in, and then we'd have to work on cleaning the data if the scan didn't do it exactly right. And so it was a whole process. I mean, it was a lot of work to just get one set of records into a database in order to analyze it. But in terms of what you're talking about, where you literally just going through the paper copies and highlighting different phone numbers and tracking it that way, that isn't something that we necessarily did. But that is a technique that I've seen a lot of teachers do, is deal with pen and paper before you go to the computer, so the students gets a full understanding of what it is that they're learning.
Exactly. That's something, because if sometimes you don't have the software, you need to go back to the basics. I like sometimes go back. Even I am fully software, computer savvy, everything. Sometimes I like to go back to the basics. It's even better sometimes.
So I also see on here something interesting, that you also are educating children to prevent abductions. So did you go to the schools and teach?
Yes, that's my first works and tasks as an intelligence analyst, as part of the missing children, and the office is also part from NCMEC. We have a program under the Interpol office, Missing Children Unit, when we went to schools and teaching kids how to prevent being abducted. And we use the NCMEX guideline of the 7 or 8 steps that they were using in that time. I don't remember so far the rules, but I understand that it's going to be 7 or 8 steps back with NCMEX. And we try to teach kids, especially in elementary school, how to prevent, to avoid to be kidnapped, and also they can identify stranger people and how to keep their body safe. So if you don't feel comfortable to touching or say hi to a person or give me a kiss, so let the people know, let your parent knows. That's something that I do. And later in I will say 2008 until the 11 or 12, the Department of Justice have a full program over there in Puerto Rico when we go to school, but now in the middle and high school with different government agencies to teach about how to prevent to be bullying or how to keep you safe online. So we're using a lot of resources from NCMEC in that time. So how to keep children safe in the online world. That's something that I made for 4 or 5 years. And the same time in that years, I start teaching officers, law enforcement officers about criminal intelligence analysts, but most on Spanish, because we have a lot of information on English, but of difference of the languages in our jurisdiction in Puerto Rico. Sometimes a good police officer, they have difficult to understand the English. So I start to train law enforcement officer with the St. Petersburg College, MCTFT. I started teaching law enforcement officer in Spanish language about the criminal intelligence cycle techniques and how they can work together.
So in terms of Puerto Rico and in terms of missing exploited children and child pornography, is there any aspect that you found that is unique to Puerto Rico and that the other parts of the world don't experience?
So I will say now with the all access that we have to the gadgets, I will say the difference of the intentions. What I like to explain is sometimes when you see photos about teen people posing on the social media, okay, you see posing, but sometimes the other side of the person, the media who is consuming that picture have another intention from these pictures. And from that moment, kids need to understand what is the intention of the picture that they post. And also because it's the Caribbean, we have a lot of access to our neighbors countries like Dominican Republic, St. Thomas, St. Croix. So we need to aware that it's more easy to address our country because it's an island, so you have a lot of access. But I learned that in my career years that child pornography is a high consumed felony. And sometimes you understand it's going to be for undereducated people or poor people, and that is incorrect. I learned that child pornography is consumed to well-educated people, high economy level people. So we need to aware where we are going to focus our investigation, because sometimes we can pointing to some community, because especially in that kind of crime, it can be considered for everyone. So that's something that I learned.
Okay, good. All right. Then as you mentioned, in 2009, you move on to organized crime. When you think back at your time in this division, what were some of the growing pains or the lessons learned that you had transferring from doing these child endangerment cases to then working with organized crime?
So I will say, I don't like to say no mercy with people, but will understand the behaviors of the people. That's something that I wish a little bit challenging, because when you're working for missing children, you need to take care for that child, for that victim, because sometimes they don't understand what happened as a whole. So when I move into the organized crime, I need to understand, hey, you know what? That child who has grown in a difficult environment now is in that side, committing felonies, making criminal behavior. So sometimes when we track on cases and you go back to this suspect, you're going back on track under history, sometimes you see that type of person have some parts of the year have it was endangered kids. So it doesn't have a proper family support or enough service from the government or private sector. It's willing that this kid is gonna be ended in the organized crime world. So that's something that I learned. And even one time we are making some arrests back to the years, and we arrest this, for example, this young boy is like 18 recently years. And everyone focus, hey, yeah, we making this arrest. When I go back to over there to verify everything is good to go, and everyone missing, hey, this kid of 18 years is taking care from his brother of 15 years because mom is working out of the home. So we cannot leave this 50 years old boy here. So what we are going to do, so back on that year doesn't have a good plan. So we take the kid with us in another car and go to the police station and call them on and explaining. And I sit to this kid explaining that's happened if you're not going to the school, keeping good grades, understanding, the process of life, you will end like your brother. And that's something that you need to take care. Sometimes just no focus on making arrest, but the whole environment when you're making arrest, you need to take care.
So we're dealing with illegal drug trafficking. What's some of the drugs of choice down there in Puerto Rico?
So we have, back on my years, we have a lot of cocaine, but a lot of cocaine. Now we are moving from cocaine to heroin, marijuana, fentanyl, methamphetamines. We don't see a lot of crystal meth or methamphetamines for all, but we are dealing with a lot of cocaine, heroin, and marijuana. That is like I will say the top three that we always working over there, because Puerto Rico is a hub island to connect to United States. So the South America, like Colombia, Venezuela, even Panama, Dominican Republic, use a lot of Puerto Rico island like a hub to export to United States and even to Europe. So we are in a good strategically position even in the globe, so we can export to different areas of United States and Europe. So that's something that always Puerto Rico is under the HIRA radar because it's a good hub spot.
And then with the organized crime, are the particular groups by name, or are they you're just targeting the head of the group, or how does it, what kind of groups are you dealing with?
So because of the access or absence of resources that the jurisdiction Puerto Rico have, we have dealing a lot to the federal jurisdiction. So I will say in our years, we always target to the middleman, not especially the high levels, because we have a lot of MOUs with the federal agency. So a certain type of the investigation, if you exceed some arrangement that we have, you need to work with the federal agency. So I will say during my years, we're working a lot with the middlemen in the organization that I've been explaining. So when you are going to target higher targets on the criminal organization, even organized crime groups, we need to work together with the federal agencies. And because of the process, because of the penalties and the sentences, federal jurisdiction are more severe on that on behalf of our laws in Puerto Rico. So sometimes we need to send the cases to the federal agency so they can prosecute it in that better way of our laws. We don't have, like I would say, enough powerful tools to be in compliance in that way. But sometimes we work to the federal agency. For example, we have cases that if you are going to punish someone for criminal cases, federal agencies have a lot of tools, so they don't have any arrangements, so they're going straight to the jail. For example, Angelo Millones is one of the top law guys in Puerto Rico who was arrested by the federal agencies. He's now sentenced for life. I understand he's located in California, one of the jails. We have, from the 90s, we have West Solano Moreta. We have a lot of lords, I would say like a lord drugs that we have in the 90s and the 2010, that now they are serving life sentences in the United States because we don't have enough powerful tools to prosecute them in our jurisdiction, Puerto Rico.
Just moving on to you becoming a special agent, what made you transfer from being an analyst to being an agent?
So I would say in 2009, I will say 9, the Puerto Rico government suffered economy restructure that we're still suffering today. And the government started to cut a lot of position. And because that time we only have 2 Intel analysts in all Puerto Rico, is by my partners Kay and I. They decided to cut it out because they understand they are not essential. So we make our appeal. So we go back to the job. So to avoid in the future be cut out again. So I move into the position of special agent. So my position can classify as essential. So that's what I make the moving. But I still having the position special agent, but doing a lot of tasks as an Intel analyst.
Okay.
It's like a sweet sour because I like it, but because of the instability of the economy in the government in Puerto Rico, so I need the necessity to take that.
Okay. So then did you go through special training to be an agent?
More like I would say theory, a lot of theory, never have like a academy. Okay. Because I would say the lack of resources and everything. I don't have like a former path to the academy. They put an academy for the new ones in like a 2020. I would say the last academy that the Special Investigations Bureau have. So I left the agency in 2017. But like in theory and practice, I would say I have the experience because I work with a good special agent that treats me with respect and let me know, hey, you need to do this, do that. Everything goes through, but like a formal academy, I never have the opportunity to assist.
Okay. So then is it still working in the office or are you more out on the field now?
Now I am more, I will say, like a balancing as a freelance, working as an advisor in the criminal justice law enforcement field, but also working as an educator because back on my years, because of the lack of content in Spanish, I started teaching law enforcement officers in Spanish. That's something that I liked a lot, and doing all the translation, curriculum, the academic research, that's something that I liked a lot. So at the same time, I was a former special agent on Intel. I also started to teaching professionals law enforcement officer and criminal justice in that area. So I'm start to move into the educational field, consulting, advisor. So I make my PhD in e-learning instructional designer, and now having an opportunity to work as a freelance. When I left the agency in 2017, I will say it's like a month before Hurricane Maria hit, so I never understand how the words compares to me because it's something that I always still thinking, wow, it's like a month separately before the hurricane hits and when I resigned to the agency to be working myself as an instructor and training, especially in the criminal justice, law enforcement, intelligence field. That's something that I like it a lot, and because of the lack of opportunity to Spanish speakers, person to access information. So I see a lot an opportunity in that area. So that's something that I'm still doing now.
Hi everyone, it's Yarisa Walsh. So today I want to leave you with a quick advice. When you send out something to either your investigators or your team, please ensure that you format. One of my biggest pet peeves and things that I have noticed is when analysts actually send out a lot of their work, whether it's PDF or words or any briefing, and the work is not properly formatted. So I will give you that advice and leave you with that to think about.
Hi, this is Kristen Lottman, and my public service announcement is to say, get your face out of your phone and your fingers off your keyboard and make that face-to-face contact, because that's how you'll connect with other people.
I guess I should have asked you this a while ago. When did you learn English?
My years public school,
okay.
Reading a lot of newspaper, and I am super fan of Law and Order SVU. So they keeping 20 seasons. I keeping within 22 seasons. So I learned a lot of my English seeing television, especially Law and Order is super fan, but reading a lot. No, yeah. People say, where you learn your English because you have your accent strong, but you have a good English. I will say I am super fan on SBU, Olivia and Elliot, a whole the team now. So since season 1, 1999, so until now, I will say the super first fan of them. So it's give me a lot because they use a lot of special key words that we use in our field. So give me a lot to understand and improving my English, because I keep improving my English.
And then when you're teaching as a special agent, when you're teaching for the investigative bureau there, are you doing both Spanish and English, or is it just Spanish?
No, I have the privilege to do it in both.
Okay.
So more in Spanish, but I have a privilege on working on both. Yes.
In Puerto Rico, given that there's a lot of tourism, when you're working these cases, and this can get, I guess, going back even to the child pornography days, endangerment cases, you're dealing with the organized crime. Is there a difference to your approach if you're working a case that just involves folks that are just from Puerto Rico, as opposed to cases where it's dealing with international influences outside of Puerto Rico, but in Puerto Rico?
No, I would say we don't have like a much difference, but you need to see any case as an individual because you never know. So I will say I don't see enough of different, but every case is different and you never know where you're going to end it. So it's like a road that you never have the opportunity to see the end until you finish your case. So
yeah. Do you have a favorite case that you worked on?
I like to work on depends. So I like a lot to work organized crime because I like the process of brainstorming, creating charts, intelligence products. I like a lot, but at the same time, in my years I'm working in the civil rights section. So go to the crime scene, see the body, see everything. That's something that I like a lot. Unfortunately, I still miss it until today. I like to go to the crime scene. I don't want everybody tell me what happened. I want to see the body. I want to see the evidence so I can make my own appreciation and write my own findings. So that's something that I miss a lot. And when I say a lot, it's something that I'm missing. So. But it's like a something like a super mix because I am blending like a criminal stuff with intelligence analysis. So I miss that field. To be honest, when I resign and leave the agency, I miss that field. So that's something that I keep doing a lot of consulting advisor because that's something that we can keep attached to the field of criminal justice, but at the same time, doing something to be a better field. So from the perspective of e-learning and education, so provide my services and my skills to the best interest of the field. That's something that I like to do a lot. So
okay. And when you're talking about the civil rights portion, that's something that you were doing later during your time with the Bureau. 2013, 2017, and those deal with police involved shootings or violence that you had to investigate. So that's where you're going to the crime scene and you're talking about looking at the body. So then your role there is to help the investigation determine whether the violence was justified.
Exactly. So as a special investigation bureau part of the Puerto Rico Department of Justice, we have this office working on behalf of the Puerto Rico Police Department to investigate cases related to shootings involved police officers. So they have like another agency and people on the society don't expel, the Puerto Rico Police Department is investigating, so they will tap in everything. No, we have like a side agency that we work on behalf of the Puerto Rico Police Department. So we present the cases to the Justice Department, to the Secretary to let you know, okay, is a violation, no violation on the shootings. So yeah, we have like another office that we are take care of that type of investigations.
So how often do you get cases in which the violence was considered not justified?
So I will say, to be honest and be very careful in that type, we have like a balance of, I would say 5 or 6, but we need to understand the Puerto Rico Police Department is under reform since 2012. So that's a lot of information in the internet. So we have been spending like 10 years trying to reform the Puerto Rico Police Department, having a better standards, how they need to do their work. We have a long way to keep being tracked back again. So now I will say we have cases that the police commit or use the force strictly, in compliance with everything that we have. Others no. But now because of this reform, our office, the cases are below. But you having a lot of information of the reform. Last week, we celebrate the Puerto Rico Police Department, and I make a post in my blog about who is benefit of the reforms, because as a civil person of Puerto Rico, I don't see like good improvements. So I made like an opinion about what the reforms need to be addressed. So the Puerto Rico society feels more comfortable to the police, and the police agent who going out every day needs to be sure they have the better tools, the better knowledge, so they can put together and doing the job the correctly way. So I invited you to see that post in my website. So it's gonna be helpful to you to understand I will say the big problem about our criminal justice system in Puerto Rico, also including, the lack of trainings and tools that we have from the Puerto Rico police perspective view.
Okay. And we'll put a link in the show notes so people can get more information on that.
Thank you, Dan.
Excellent. All right. So then you move on, you become a professor. How did you enjoy that experience? And because it's online training, so are you working from home at this time?
Yes, I have the opportunity to work from home with my 4 legs assistant, Olivia, who's the name. If you see her name is Olivia, it's because of the law enforcement. The Law and Order show. So I am super fan of the Olivia character. So I have the opportunity to work from home, any part of the country. That's something that I enjoy a lot. And because all thing of the COVID gave me a lot of new tools that I learned to improve myself and working remotely. But at the same time, keeping my roots to the Spanish community, speakers about criminal justice, law enforcement, intelligence issues. So that's something that I always keep in posting. Yeah.
Yeah. So Olivia is cat or dog?
A dog. She's a Chihuahua mix. She was rescued in 2018. She's the love of my heart after my husband and everything. But she's my assistant. I always say talk to my assistant so she can let you know.
Right. So what did you enjoy teaching the most?
Because I always be a full student until ending life. I will say when you sit to a group of people or students and start having this conversation about how is I would say, sit in the class and start having a conversation with the student. How do you think about the job or law enforcement? And you can understand another perspective. So having that type of conversation and how people think about our jobs in the law enforcement community, police science community, that's a lot of the talks that I enjoy in the classroom. So when you're going online, you having people from everywhere, and sometimes you have family members taking the classes. So not just only the student, because sometimes, and as happened, is the kids, is the grandma, is the partner, and they join the conversation. That's something that I also like it, because they feel it, they understand it, they are supporting the people who still studying the field. So that's something that I like to do. And sometimes they enjoy when I start to talking my Spanglish and start to mixing English and Spanish talks and words. Okay, she's now on her thing. So that's something that they enjoy a lot.
Yeah. And so since this is online, is this something linked to a Puerto Rico college, or is this something outside of Puerto Rico?
No, when I used to teach online. Most of them did it in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. So yes, if full in Spanish, you can go to the website and see the college that I work at. But most of them was in Puerto Rico, and some of because it's online, they enroll in the college in Puerto Rico. But they are some from other countries, and they enroll in Puerto Rico because we are part from the United States, and United States we have more recognition and everything. So that's something that online work give the opportunity, and that's give me opportunity to me, because in 2018 I made my postgraduate degree in intelligence studies, and I flew to Madrid, Spain to be like a 5-day, because it was a postgraduate degree in intelligence studies. I made it completely online, but at the same time, take time. I flew there to Madrid and spend time with my colleagues and professor, and that was super nice because the experience it's amazing. Studying another country, it's always a good feeling. I like a lot that experience. I am expecting to do it again in the few years, because I'm looking to make another postgraduate in organized crimes too. That's a topic that I like it a lot.
Right. Is there something that you wish you could change about the college teaching as it relates to a future criminal justice profession?
I have a lot to say. Let me see when I start. I will say honestly, and with the most respectful opinion, we need to redo the whole curriculum attached to our days. We never forget the history. The history is part that we are doing today. Integrating courses related to integrate courses related to intelligence analysis to understand the skills. I also will include critical thinking skills. I will also include technology classes, because sometimes people underestimate personnel who study criminal justice, and when they go outside to find a job, they have struggling issues because they don't have enough experience. They don't have the technology skills that they supposed to have. So I will say we need to go back, update the curriculums to what is now in the demanding. So having a lot of technology skills, understanding the intelligence cycle, just not only applying, so understand how to apply each stage and understand the meaning, and how you can apply the intelligence cycle in other areas, for example, for education, for business administration, for medicine, for sports. Now I'm starting research about how to implement intelligence analysis in the e-learning world. So how to apply each cycle on the intelligence to development courses, curriculum, and you will find a lot of similarities of them. And also, I will say something that I seen in the job announcement related to criminal justice, project management skills. Okay. So like I say, it's like a lot. We just only focus on the laws. We are focused on the procedure. That's super important, but how we balance that with the civil rights now, everything after what happened, after all the reforms that we have in the police in different states, after all these cases about bias, that's something that we need to include.
Okay, good. All right, let's get into a general conversation now about the Spanish influence to law enforcement analysis, because I want to get your perspective of how you see analysis through the eyes as someone being from Puerto Rico.
So I will say we have road to do, because sometimes people understand that the intelligence analyst is look the information through the system, NCIC, all the system that we use, and provide and print the information, and you make the intelligence like a magic formula, and that seems incorrect. So I will say from the perspective of Puerto Rico, we have a lot of opportunities to develop a good intelligence division office, and how we can integrate our brothers and sisters countries, how we can work together sharing exactly, for example, information to Dominican Republic, to the Virgin Islands. There's a lot of work that we need to do, because when we need to understand what the means of intelligence analysis and how is that you need to understand the process, you will see that you can produce proactive intelligence content on behalf of reactive intelligence content. So now I will say we are in the position that always we creating reactive intelligence content. That's mean that we are reacting for an issue and making the intel information, and we are not prepared to making proactive intelligence, using a strategic intelligence, using operational intelligence, so you can have enough information to plan into the future, having a good public program. I will say, let me say, when I think in Spanish, I would say you have a good plan how to prevent crime. So you need a lot of proactive intelligence, so you can develop a good plan and execute a good plan, align it to the standards, the needs of your country or your state or your city. So we are now in the reactive side. So how I will say the big if and the big gap is how to move into a proactive environment intelligence.
So when you're talking about reactive, this is a scenario where, okay, you get a target and you're trying to identify, going back to your organized crime days as an example, you have a group, you're identifying the group that you know has done something wrong, and you're building a case against them, that they've done something wrong. Proactive to that would be something where you're studying the city and identifying where gaps or where maybe a future event is about to happen, and then preventing that from occurring.
Exactly. And also another thing that I always see from Puerto Rico, and this is my opinion, is that we need to see another intelligence models around the world. We have a lot from the American intelligence model, but we need to see, for example, for Europe, we need to see from South America, from Argentina, from Panama. They have their own intelligence system, and we need to capture the best of the best, including United States, so we can align the best of the best to our needs in the prevention of crime. And as you mentioned, having the opportunity to create proactive intelligence aligning to our needs as a jurisdiction, our need as a law proceedings, criminal law, stuff that we have, that's something that we need to address urgently, because unfortunately we are rising a lot of crimes and the rate of resolved cases are so low, so people doesn't have faith in our criminal justice. So I am very believer of the proactive intelligence and how to align it to our needs, not just only from Puerto Rico, but every jurisdiction, how they can use the best of the best around the world and put in practice from the best interest of the, keep the society safe.
What do you wish analysts would do to be more proactive?
I will say understand the difference between the careers of intelligence analysts and special agents, because there are two different skills in the process. And people give enough space to understand our jobs. Like I say, not only look information through the computers or system, is analyze, is interpret the information, how to put together, how we can develop information with findings, with facts, with information. That's something that we need to, that is important for me.
Yeah. How do you think police departments, intelligence agencies can help out analysts identify the gaps that we were talking about before in proactive analysis?
I will say if we have enough access to the facts, to the numbers, to the information, sometimes it's good to interview or having a brainstorming to the police officer, the patrol officer that they are every day on the street. Sometimes if the supervisor doesn't interview, doesn't have a good briefing or debriefing with their team, you have a lot of information because they are patrolling every day. They see, they hear. So analysts needs access to that type of information so they can understand the behavior on the streets and how people are, bad guys are improving ourselves. Because now, I don't know if you see about bad guys, they making their assignments. Bad guys, organizational crimes organization, they are making their assignments. They doing intelligence. They looking from the internet. They improving those skills. So if we not as a agency, as an officer, as an intern, if we not taking that as a good perspective to how to deliver a proactive, we are continuing development on, bad intel. I would not like to say bad intel, but not successful intel. Because now, because of the access to the internet and the information, criminal organizations are doing their job of intel and they know the cycle. I don't know if you see that, but I see it a lot on how they improving the organization, management, the risk assessment, the management, how they can improve the organization. That's something that I read it a lot. And when you go back to the roots and understand their behavior, they are studying like us. So that's something that I see a lot.
And then in terms of getting the different Spanish-speaking countries together, what do you think needs to happen there to get all these intelligence agencies from Central and South America and even the Caribbean together?
I will say how we'll balance the information from I will say jurisdictional perspective, political perspective, also influencing the criminal justice matters. So in my experience, when I read information, reports, research about intelligence cycle in Spanish, and putting or make the translation to English, people can expand their knowledge because sometimes see some issue from another perspective, but they doesn't have the skills to how to translate or how to share because of the language barriers. So I will say that give me a lot. One time I have a class when one of the English speakers students asking me, hey, what is the difference with the English and Spanish intelligence? I will say in the process is nothing because we are using the same cycle, but how they can interpret the information, how they can apply the cycle and understand and see things from another's perspective. They give me a lot of new information that sometimes as if we're using the American cycle, we're using the European cycle, we can pass or we can miss it or we don't take that in like it's gonna be a good thing or bad thing that we need to address that. So having, I will say, the privilege to know both language give me a lot to understand and expand my knowledge, vision, perspective on how to apply the cycle, because there's a lot, especially the Colombia intelligence after all the happened with Pablo Escobar, they structured the whole entire thing. Also with Argentina, with the Eva Perón area, Panama, Madrid, Spain, also made it after the 2000, I will say 3 or 4 bombs on the train. They redo everything about the intelligence. So there's a lot of things outside there that we need to keep the perspective to improve it ourselves and, expand our knowledge and skills and spread it out.
Okay. Good. And as mentioned in your intro, you do translations for both IALEIA and IACA. And I know when we were talking in the prep call, you had mentioned that you're starting in Spanish in your head and then translating over to English. Even when you were having an English conversation, now you're still innately starting with Spanish and then working your way over to English. So I guess as you're doing some of these translations, can you think of a time where maybe a particular unique experience happened or maybe some outrageously funny occurrence happened?
Oh, yes. Sometimes when people send me content to make the translation, hey, I made like a translation, using the usual translator, Google's stuff. And when you read the translation, you say, what? And sometimes you need to go back. Okay, send me the original in English to understand. And you need to balance the wording to have a better flow on the message. So sometimes you see a lot of wording that we can use that word. We can use that word, because sometimes in countries, some Spanish words means are this completely different. So you need to balance the meaning and the wording. So yes, I have a lot of that, but I always asking, okay, send me the English, the originals, and always you are looking to me to talk to the person. Okay, what do you want to say? What is the meaning, that the message that you want to translate it to the people? So because that is important in the process of translating information. So I don't want to people lose the focus on the meaning or the message that you want to translate. So for me, that is important. And other times, hablar español and people can understand. So
is there a particular word and phrase that just does not translate very well into Spanish?
Words like assets, words like this word that we use, person of interest, that we use in Spanish, we say persona de interés. And that's something that in Spanish we don't use a lot, but because of the English and speakers use it a lot, the Spanish start, persona de interés. So if you don't have any support evidence to call this person or to call this subject personal interest, we don't use it a lot. But because in English sounds super nice, super fancy, people say, persona de interés. So that's something that we use. So when the lawyers start to making their job, why are you calling persona de interés if you don't have enough evidence to support that? So that's something that sometimes, when you go to trial.
Yeah. Does that get lost in translation? Do some people not recognize that a person of interest means that they're a target of investigation? It means something to them totally different when you say that, hey, that person's interested. How does that work?
Yeah, because we try to use the wording in Spanish. Okay, if this is the suspect or not the suspect. That is the two things that we use. But now we're using the phrase personal interest or personal interest, like it's giving you a meaning, but that meaning can damage your, I would say, damage, like the persona who you are. For example, at the end, you are never related to the case, but once upon a time, you was target at the personal interest. So that is going to be follows you. And because of the old social media, that stuff stays, forever and ever in the media. So it's like sometimes a little bit of damage that we need to keep in mind. So for me, I like to say subject or not subject. Okay, we have multiple person that we're still investigating and we're still analyzing and everything, but said that, I am very jealous about using that. I know in the American law, they use it a lot, but because now you can damage the integrity of the person and from the civil perspective in other ways. So I like to be very calm. If I don't have enough evidence to target, for example, Agnes, like a subject, personal interest, I will not target Agnes as a personal interest. So it's like a wording law proceeding that lawyers use a lot.
Good. And then I guess, do you have any advice for English speakers that are trying to learn Spanish?
Always enroll to good quality Spanish classes, because we have now a lot in the social media, but sometimes the meaning in Spanish are not the same in the different Spanish speakers countries around the world. So keep that in mind. So I will say that, so keep in mind when you're speaking Spanish, so be aware, use your dictionary. People doesn't use dictionary now. I keep having me, yeah, I am old school girl, because sometimes Google Translator doesn't do the job correctly.
Yeah, well, you need to be the Agnes Spanish translator there and compete with Google.
No, I don't want to compete with Google, but sometimes you need, like I said, you need to go back to the basics and use a dictionary sometimes. When you're reading and make the translation, you say, what? So that's something that I have sometimes. So I will say, hey, Spanish, there are a lot of people around the world who speak Spanish. So I am working with a college teaching students Spanish. So you will see that a lot of people, different ages, who are learning Spanish. You will be surprised at the amount of people who likes to learn Spanish. So, and I'm learning a lot, because I learned another words in Spanish that we not use in Puerto Rico, but we can use in other countries. So I'm still learning my Spanish and growing my Spanish.
All right, very good. Well, our last segment to the show is Words to the World, and this is where I give the guests the last word. Agnes, you can promote any idea that you wish. What are your words to the world?
I would say, first of all, I'm very serious about peace work. We need to be in peace. I would like society understand the law enforcement communities. I like people to believe on our job and how we can do and always growing to be a better person in our profession. And, visiting my space when you have the time in the e-learning work.
All right. Very good. Well, I leave every guest with, you've given me just enough to talk bad about you later.
Good.
I'm so glad you got that. But I do appreciate you being on the show, Agnes. Thank you so much. And you be
Thank you for this invitation. The first time when I received the email to be invited, you say, what? I start like, a gritar for my whole home. Like, what? I am invited. I start to dancing. Woo, woo. So I am very proud. It's an honor to me to be here today.